Hello everybody, Pinstripe here. What is going on? Welcome back to another unused map. Today we're looking at the map called Tanks, which is ironic given that there are no tanks on this map. But that does beg the question, would tanks have played a role in this map and its objective? Or would they have been involved in something that would occur at some point during this mission? It's all speculation, but as you can see, there is major damage to the houses and the majority of the buildings, in fact, in this mission. There is a good variety of buildings here. As you can see, there is a repetitive use of the houses, but I mean, reusing assets is a good way of ensuring that you know exactly how much space you're using, because bearing in mind this was going on the PS1, so they had to think about disk space and reusing things as much as they could. But, you know, we've got houses, we've got a shop as well, there's a church, so this obviously is some kind of small village. You've also got a water tower and a farmhouse on the far side, and obviously, you know, the middle section of this map is separated by a small amount of water, but you have some very, very high ground on either side of this map. So it's not quite mirrored, but you have those high ground areas on either side. So whether or not the tanks would maybe come in from the high ground, or you know, maybe they'd appear and start shelling, because the early version of Hogs of War seemed to have this constant ingoing and outgoing of certain things, whereby, you know, we've talked about the unused characters like the militants or the pigs of the night, you know, these characters that would do things and they would interact with the player as you were going through the mission, or as you were going through the level or the map or whatever. So, you know, it's very rare to see things going on alongside the player or the AI's movement. You don't have things going on in between different moves. So for instance, if I were to take over control of one of my pigs and I was running along, and to the left of me there was you know, another pig moving. That doesn't happen in today's game, but it was very common back then, and it was a common theme. So militants would come in and they'd steal supplies, maybe supply crates that were lying around. So you end up with a game that has a lot of external things going on, things that, you know, include interaction with the player, but they are not directly controlled by said player. And technically you do have some of those things in today's game. You know, if you use an airstrike and the airship comes along and drops things, you know, that's something that's going on and doesn't directly interact with the player because you're not controlling it, you're just observing, but it does impact gameplay and the progression overall. So I feel like this game would have had plenty of things going on at any given time, so there would be a lot of player interaction with other characters that you may not control, or you may end up, you know, at some point during a match controlling players. There's just a lot of different factors, and tanks, I don't know, again, we can only really speculate, but I also managed to break the game, as you can see. I don't really know what I did except for fire off an airburst, you know, just for the sake of it. You could see some particle effects, and you couldn't actually see the shell that was launched. It literally just decided to roll off the screen, off the map entirely, and explode. Once again, we have a continuation of this overall grassy theme, where it's like very English quaint village type scene as well, but obviously here we have a little bit more destruction, and I think it would have been cool to see extra details like fire and, I don't know, just slight colour palette changes to the models of the buildings as well, so you had a little bit more damage shown there, because yes, you know, you can clearly see that the buildings are damaged, but I don't know, they look like cardboard cutouts to me, I suppose. But they are simple 2D planes that are just sort of placed all together, so there's only so much detail that you can technically get in there. But the other thing to know about this map is that it did make it into the next stage of development, where we see a major change in the colour palette used. As you can see in this early version, the colours are very bright, they pop out at you, and you can see that quite clearly in the main grass texture that's used. But as we transition into the later stage, you can really see a shift into those darker colours, those browns, those greys, and of course plenty of shadow. So you can also see where the buildings used to be, and everything appears in the style that we know of from today's game. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you've guessed by now, this map did not make it into any further stage of development, and that's because it was stuck in an era of the game that just didn't fit into the modern style. This map is all about buildings, and every single asset, every single building that was shown in the early stages of the game is no longer in today's game. They were not reused. Things were changed. We don't have churches in the game. We don't have farmhouses. Buildings are seen and used in a completely different way. So the transition period just didn't need buildings like that. There was no need to center everything around them, and ultimately it led to Tank's demise. But let me know what you think about this map in the comments, and I will catch you guys later for the next one.